Hello and welcome once again to Crazy Comics and Stories. It's me, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard, and at the other end of the series of tubes and wires we call the internets is Joe Crazy Writer. How you doing today, Joe?
I feel like dancing, dancing, I want to dance the night away. I feel like dancing and I don't know the next verse.
Well, that's good.
Of course, I'm one of those guys that drives you crazy. I hate people who can't sing the right verse of the song.
You mean you're not the guy in the car who, when you get to the lines you don't know, does it go...
Sing on. Oh, that was Nirvana.
Lead a double life.
And I guess Charles in charge. Yeah, that's me.
So this is what a day off is like.
Yes, isn't it great?
Yeah, I only had to go to work at 6 p.m. last night.
I got out at 6 p.m. Where was I? Oh, man, we got our asses handed to us at work. But I could talk about that when we get to our beloved freaking and geeking. Because Cory actually made me do homework for this year. What a bastard. You rat bastard.
Well, first...
Where's the cleaner when I need him? Never around.
Down some news.
Nudes! Okay, number one, I was bitching a couple podcasts ago about, what's his name? Rosinski not going to San Diego Comic-Con?
Yeah.
Which he didn't. But he did something that always drives me insane when he was complaining about, oh, well, I had to wait for my stuff and blah, blah. When I complained to the con, they didn't care and whatever. The big thing is that the convention center contracts out who moves their stuff into the convention center. The guys who run the San Diego Comic-Con have nothing to do with it, have no control over it. So, yeah, you may be lucky and get it first. You may be not lucky and get it last. Complain all you want. There's nothing we can do about it. Just like at the MCBA. You know, the Fall Comic-Con, which is October 7th, 2017, at the Minnesota State Fair Education Building.
Because you need to get educated.
And the thing about it is that when you rent it, you have to decide then and there, are you going to buy heat or are you going to buy AC?
I don't
first of all, the education...
I think they just have fans.
Nope. Doesn't have AC, and it has heat, but I mean, usually in October, it's not subpar temperatures. Well, we've been in the education building both times, the infamous SweatCon of, what was that, 2006? When, oh, sweet bejesus, it was so hot and sweaty.
It was like 90 outside in
I know.
October.
And of course, everybody's complaining, why don't you have air conditioning? Building doesn't come with it. I haven't needed it in years. Matter of fact, it was only a few years earlier where we wish we had heat because it was snowing outside. That's one of the reasons they moved the con from November, where you can find tons of spaces to do conventions, into October, so you didn't have to worry about that.
Well, it used to be the last weekend in September, and the reason for that was because many of the people involved in the convention were also involved in the Renaissance Festival, and it went through the next to last weekend of September, so we would always have it the weekend after the Renaissance Festival ended.
So it's like there's a comic convention that is being advertised for December 7th in Richfield, and I'll talk about it a little bit more probably as we get closer to it, but I mean, December, dude, you got a 50-50 chance of snowstorm, blizzard, or not. I mean, you were in town, Cory, for the infamous 91 Halloween snowstorm, right?
Yes, the Halloween blizzard got stuck out on traffic in it and was stranded in my house for 3 days.
Yeah, I remember the same thing. I mean, I was working at Sears, and obviously it was closed, and what I recall is when we went to bed, this first year Chris and I owned a house, and we fell asleep and woke up to a foot of snow, and I think it kept going for, 2-3 feet?
It was 3 feet of snow by the time it ended.
Quite a lot, and the only thing that saved us were a couple of kids come by with a snowblower and offered to blow our snow out, and we're like, $10. And you'd have thought I offered them Nirvana, because they were like, oh, $10! And then they did, and I'm like, damn, I should have had them do the driveway too, but I didn't think about it. Pat Gruber came over with his little snowblower. This is like one of those handheld things that's probably good for, like, you can pick it up and use it to blow off snow. It was more like a an actual fan than an actual grinding up.
It's a fan on a stick.
And I mean, he went and tried to help me do the deck, and as we were uncovering it, hey, the deck sunk a foot from all the weight of the snow. So, yeah, that's the thing with and they had that too. I mean, there was a con last weekend, which I'll talk about when we get to geeking. A beautiful day outside, and really, some people are like, there's not a lot of people here. I said, well, what do you expect? They're all at the pool next door. It was, so that's the problem with summer and winter cons. Of course, if you're doing it the weekend, we're recording this here podcast. You got that, what's that monstrosity out in them Diego guys?
It's San Diego Comic-Con this weekend, too.
Yeah, so, and we've even run into that problem with Fall Con, and then we're running into it again with Spring Con. There's major cons that weekend. Everybody, why don't you get more people to come? Well, they're going to cons either closer to their home or there's like major cons that they're going to. So,
or, let's be honest, and I've said this for a decade now, other than like Jim Lee, no one drives convention traffic.
No, and what you consider a big name is probably a meh to somebody else. So I mean, we got Joe Linsner. I mean, to me, that's a major thing. He's been here twice, and people are like, what has he done lately?
Well, he hasn't done a full comic in over a decade, Joe.
Who cares? Look at his artwork. So again, we got Don Rosa, we had Mike Grell, we got all these great names that have been here. I look back on the pictures I've taken and some of I don't think I've shared them on Facebook when I used to walk around with the championship belt. I mean, I had Murphy Anderson pose with it, Carmen Infantino pose with it, Adam Hughes posed with it. I mean, these are great people that have been to our cons, and but who have you got lately? It's like, well, I don't know. Ask somebody, invite them, put up your frequent flyer miles, bring them in.
But, like I said with Joe Linsner, you got to remember that the target audience for comics, 18 to 34. That means
I don't know. That may be a target, but I don't think that's the audience.
It is for if you look at the ads. Ads are how you can tell something's who it's aimed at. Comics are aimed at men age 18 to 34. That means Joe Linsner's last fully drawn comic, and it didn't do well. So let's go back to his last Marvel comic. Came out in 2004. 13 years ago. That means that the target audience was between 20 and 3. They're not going to know who he is. They know who's now.
I think I would reject that argument. I would reject that argument because I've seen the people wandering around the con. They know who Joe Linsner is. But the whole problem is
they don't care.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you bring in. It's cool to somebody, meh to somebody else.
Yeah.
So it's like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. So you can argue all you want against Linsner. I'll argue all I want for Linsner,
I'm not saying don't bring him in. I'm saying he's not a draw.
This is my internet in the afternoon, which is why evening's a little better. Because they monitor, what's that big thing they fight over, net neutrality?
Yeah.
These guys decide, well, you really don't use your internet much in the afternoon, so it'll fade out periodically. And usually I don't notice it because I'm busy doing something, unless it's real internet intensive like streaming. So,
bastards.
Isn't that great? It's like, really? So I pay $100 a month just to have you fade on me when I need you?
Bastards. Sons of bitches.
Yeah, and the sad thing is it's still a monopoly. It's not like I can go to somebody that might have better service. I'm pretty much stuck with this or Comcast, and I've already given up Comcast. So what was the last thing I was ranting on? I was trying to segue into our topic, but
you were talking about how some people are excited about Joe Linsner and some people are meh.
Okay. And that kind of leads into our topic today. We're going to talk about top 25 dream teams that we'd like to see on Marvel Comics. And by we, I mean Cory, because I don't really think that way, but I'll have things to add in that. And there might be times, you're going to have a team, and I'm going to go, who? Why? What? Nah. And it might be the same way, with what I might suggest. But any other, how you say, precursors you want to give the listening audience before the fun and shenanigans begin?
Actually, I want to knock down. I started by saying I was going to knock down a news story.
Oh, yeah.
Joe sent me,
knockers.
Just about everybody on the planet sent me this thing from
Ding dong, the witch is dead, the wicked Ike, he's got smiked.
Saying that Ike Permutter is no longer in charge of Marvel.
He's out!
And Marvel said, no, we just changed his title.
Which could be corporate legalese for, he's got us under a barrel because he's like one of the biggest Disney shareholders, and we just can't unceremoniously dump him, but we'll give him a new title and kind of get him away from us.
Except the new title is, what is it? He was CEO and now he's chairman, or he was chairman and now he's CEO.
So that would be somewhere where he can do what he does best, not be a public figure.
Hang out with Donald Trump.
When you are in the happiest place on earth and, you have to drum up publicity, that's probably the best place for you to be. Let's get a COO who actually wants to go out to San Diego, and make big announcements and be in crowd pictures with who's the guy who plays Hulk?
Mark Ruffalo.
Did you see one of the Spider-Man Easter eggs? His picture was on the wall as like an alumni.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, there was a couple shots like that. Now that I saw Spider-Man, I went and I read all the Easter eggs, and man, because I didn't see a lot of them, but that's a different subject. We don't want to talk about Spider-Man for people that haven't seen it yet. I'm
going on Saturday.
Okay.
I'm taking days off to do things.
You should have gone Friday for $5, or no, Tuesday. Tuesday is $5 day.
I was working Tuesday. I took off Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
I'm taking off. What did you do? Well, I worked.
Well, we'll get to that.
All right, but that's not what we want to talk about.
But one of the things in the story that I read that just made me want to beat my head against the wall. Ike Permutter's the one who doesn't want Marvel to use the X-Men, and the one who got rid of Wolverine. And
did they say he was the one, or did they say this happened under his reign?
He's the one because he's pissy about Fox. I hate to break it to people, but the X-Men are still in print, and they have been in print, and Marvel has done a whole bunch of shit to try to get them to sell better. Okay?
Well,
when
I
they
would
put
disagree.
Brian Michael Bendis on the X-Men, your number one writer.
We've got stories in the past podcasts where they're talking about, we're trying to push the Inhumans as the new X-Men, and we wanted none of it. We want our X-Men.
You had your X-Men. People weren't buying it anymore. Before Bendis, they had Matt Fraction. Matt Fraction, one of Marvel's architects. Before that, Ed Brubaker, one of Marvel's architects. They've tried. What it is, in my opinion, the X-Men were on top for, from 1983 to 2000, I would say 6 or 7. And the No More Mutants thing really kneecapped them, and they just never recovered from that, in my opinion. Doesn't matter who they've put on the book, it's still not Marvel's number one seller.
Made one mistake. You said it. You said what the problem is, but you didn't say it right. Doesn't matter who's on the books. We talked about that in the past. You got way too many X-Men books. You got way too many Avenger books now. Your problem is Marvel. It's like, this sells. Deadpool sells well. Let's make 25 more Deadpool books. And, again, this is old podcast news. Go dig them up, folks. They're free on the Solitaire Rose Network. Just because you got one good one doesn't mean you have any better ones. In this case, you didn't have the one good one.
As for Wolverine, his book wasn't selling either.
Which one?
Any of them.
Wolverine X-Men, Wolverine Spider-Man, Wolverine Deadpool, Wolverine goes to the library, Wolverine gets a nail job.
So now they've got all new Wolverine, which they had been setting up for years. And there was also that thing where Marvel, if we kill off a character every quarter, it bumps sales. Well, the death of Wolverine didn't bump sales. You can't go back to that well over and over. You can't kill a character every quarter.
Hear that, DC? We're getting to you next week.
But the whole, Ike Permutter's the one, no, Permutter's the one who says that, they don't have an inventory. You can't keep inventory, which stunts Marvel's trade paperback and hardcover sales. Because inventory, basically the long tail is where your money is in today's market. But now Marvel, because of the financial constraints that are put on them by Perlmutter and his penny pinching, that's why you get these omnibuses have been out for 6 months, dump them. Whereas DC keeps the stuff in inventory and it sells in perpetuity. Oh, look, this sold out, let's do a reprint of it.
So you're saying he's blameless because the Fantastic Four were banned from the Marvel Universe. That there is no Black Widow movie, even though, Wonder Woman was number 3 movie of all time in North America. That all these characters were kind of shunted to the sideline for lesser. So Ike's whole social justice warrior movement is failing.
He's not.
He's totally blameless.
Well, let me put it this way. He's one of the most right-wing of right-wing guys. He hangs out with Trump all the time. I doubt he's pushing a, quote, social justice warrior movement. He's the one who's in charge of the money. You know why the Fantastic Four was banished? Same reason Thor was banished. Same reason Doctor Strange was banished. The book didn't sell. They tried a number of things. They put Mark Miller on the book, and it didn't sell. They put Matt Fraction on the book, and it didn't sell. James Robinson on the book, and it didn't
smart
sell.
guy. You're in charge of Marvel. Who would you put on what book? Let's get to your dream team.
What this is, there was somebody on a Facebook group, one of those, for older comic fans, and he put together his Marvel Dream Teams. And immediately, people are like, oh, those two people wouldn't work together. Everybody, the combined age of your Avengers teams is the same as Galactus. Blah, blah, blah. And he was like, no, these are the comics I want to see. I'm not saying this is to publish.
Or even feasible.
Yeah. He said, these are my dream teams.
This is my fantasy.
It's like when people put together those...
my comic book fantasy. God, I love singing. Almost as much as cleaning.
Football people, they put together a football dream team. This would be the greatest football team of all time. It's the same sort of thing. So I put together a dream team for Marvel. I just picked 25 books. I made it to 24 because I thought maybe you would come up with a few.
Well, I've got a few. I don't know if I have dream team, but I have things that I would like to see. So it kind of goes along with that. And I think if we go round robin, we should be able to get through these pretty good.
And what it is, I know that my only criteria was it has to be somebody who's alive and doing comics. And some of them,
hang on, that gets rid of half my group.
And some of them I know cannot do a monthly book.
True. But in our dream team world, they do.
Right.
Or maybe they'll do 6 issues and then publish it, not, hey, we're going to publish this, it's doing in advance, it's going to be here, and we're going to add an 8th issue, and then maybe a 9th issue, and they're going to be so fucking late that I had to close my comic store. Not that I'm bitter!
See, that's not a dream.
I've got a lot of issues with you people!
So I will just go down my list, and Joe, because you've got ideas, you can throw them in.
Oh yeah, you talk about it, then I'll talk about one, and free comments on each. You listeners, sit back and enjoy. This is the shenanigans.
Buy the premise, buy the bit.
Exactly.
And DC will do you next week.
Yeah, don't think we forgot about you.
So for Avengers, my dream team would be Mark Waid and George Perez.
Oh, that sucks. No, actually, that's pretty good. Although I might put Kurt Busiek on it. I did love his run.
The other rule is that only one book per person.
Yes, that's an excellent rule. Bendis, we'll get to you. Odell,
Wade knows his continuity. He's doing a great job on the Avengers and the Champions right now, and nobody draws a team book better than George Perez.
That is absolutely true. For me, I've talked about this guy in the past. His name's Christopher MGK Bird. He does a website called MightyGodKing.com, and one of the things he puts on it is, I should write the Legion of Superheroes, the original 30, and he also does reasons why I should write Doctor Strange, and he's done about 45 of them, and his ideas are so Doctor Strange's, they are just wonderful. I don't even know who I could team this guy up with in terms of artistry, but I would talk to him and I'd say, dude, you got it. Take your ideas, run with it. I might out of the 45 go, I want to see you do this one first. And he constantly updates it too. So like when Doctor Strange wasn't Sorcerer Supreme, he said, yeah, I know that. Here's what I would do. He doesn't give the whole story, which is why I'm always so intrigued, because he gives this is the idea, this is the problem, this is what Doctor Strange is up against, and he doesn't give you the answer like, so in other words, he's hedging his bets. If Cory and I, take over Ike's job, we'll get him on there, and so you can go to his website, mightygodking.com, and just check some of the stuff. You might actually enjoy it.
Next up, Spider-Man. I'm giving Spider-Man 2 books. And the first one would be The Amazing Spider-Man. First with Dan Slott, because Dan Slott is awesome. And he's been doing Spider-Man for a long, long time. He's long-term planning to the point where in the most recent issue of Amazing Spider-Man, we find out why the Parker Industries logo was designed the way it was. That's a seed he planted years ago. And for the artist, somebody who hasn't drawn a regular comic since the 90s, and I don't care, J. Scott Campbell. When they announced that, Jeff Loeb and J. Scott Campbell were going to do a Spider-Man book, I was so excited. It's been a decade, and it's still not out yet.
Dream Team nightmares.
So that's why I always, when they announce people like, hey, Neil Adams is going to be doing a blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I'll wait till I see
Neil, good old Neil.
Or Steranko's going to allow them to reprint the graphic novel he did in the 70s. Yeah, he's been saying that for 20 years. But yeah, Dan Slott and J. Scott Campbell on Spider-Man.
Cory, did you like All-Star Squadron when Roy Thomas was writing it? I would get Roy Thomas to do an All-Star Squadron type book with early Marvel characters.
Like the Invaders.
Sit down, start from maybe shortly before Submariner showed up, which is, arguably the beginning of Marvel Comics. Or if he wants to go back further, it's his choice. Take any continuity book, because we know there's been a lot of time travel back and forth, and just start from square one and go forward. And let him pick the art team because he knows who he likes to work with. I just would love to see. I love All-Star Squadron. It's a run, although I'm shedding my stuff at an alarming rate. It's one that I will probably not get rid of because I just absolutely love it. Plus, he also did things like he brought in, like from Superman 4, the first time he fought a red-headed Luthor, if you remember way back then, your Golden Age comics. And for me, let's get Alex Ross to do the covers because he does beautiful covers, and I think it would be a lot of fun. So all the characters, make it a one congruent timeline, and just have some fun. Start before the war, and we'll just keep rolling up through the war. I mean, Roy, I'm begging you, come back, please.
The other Spider-Man book would be Spectacular Spider-Man by Chip Zdarsky, who, yes, he just started on Spider-Man, but his stuff on other books, like Sex Criminals and Howard the Duck and things like that, have shown me that he really gets the adventure, humor aspect of Spider-Man. And for artists, I'd pick Sarah Pichelli, who was on the Ultimate Spider-Man for a long time. and I think really did a great job on Ultimate Spider-Man, and it'd be cool to see her do Peter Parker.
There's a part of the Marvel Universe that I think's been underdeveloped, and occasionally they touch on it. And I know when they do reprints, Cory absolutely loves them, and I dig them because I've never read them. The whole horror area of Marvel Comics. You got the Frankenstein, you got Dracula, the Living Mummy, Man-Thing. Doctor Strange touches on it. Ghost Rider's a big part of it. Richard Corbin, I want you to be the director of this entire area. We will make this line as Vertigo was to DC. But I want you can use all the characters in the Marvel Universe. It's the hidden dark side of Marvel. We'll make it a Max line. It almost has to be a Max line. If you want to get Rob Zombie in there, let him write some stuff. Let Stephen King. In my dream team, we get Alan Moore back. Let him do to the Man-Thing what he did to the Swamp Thing. But I just think that would be a phenomenal thing. Get somebody who understands horror. I want comics that make me shiver. Kind of like when I was reading some of the original Man-Thing, or when I read some of Richard's horror stuff. And if Richard doesn't want it, maybe Rob needs a job. Rob Zombie, that is. So I just think this would be kind of a fun, no holes barred part, and we'll keep it hidden from Disney because they don't need to know about it. But let's see what we can do there.
Next book that I have is going to sound a little weird till I mention something. Joe, when you think early Hulk, who do you think of?
Early?
Yeah.
First thing come to mind was Herb Trimp, because that's early for me.
See, most people think Kirby. Kirby only did the first 5 issues.
Yeah, that's why I didn't go there.
But then Ditko did the 6th issue, and then when it came back in Tales to Astonish, he had a run in that. So there is precedent for this. I would like to see a Hulk book by Mike Allred.
That would be pretty cool.
Allred's got that Ditko-esque way of drawing. His stuff reminds me of Ditko a lot. Not that he apes Ditko, but it's that very clean, albeit odd style. But also, he has shown on his stuff that he has a deep, abiding love of Marvel weirdness. And we've had all kinds of Hulks. We've had, the Hulk where it's treated like a superhero book, where it's treated like a psychological book, where it's treated like a horror book. I'd like to get back to that Ditko weirdness for a while and just give Allred a run on it. It's a little unconventional, but I think that would be what the Hulk needs right now.
Speaking of Ditko, I want him back on anything, even if it's just a one-shot book. If he wants to bring the Missing Man and have him romp through Marvel in his own unique style, do it. Name your price, name your character, we'll do it. There are so many classic names of artists that just haven't worked that I would just love to see them do something. And Ditko definitely is one of them. You want to give me my pet dream? Write the last Spider-Man story. Draw it. You only. We're not going to get Stan involved. This is your baby. Finish what you started. I don't see in reality how that would ever work, but, he came out and did
That's the fun
Rom.
thing about this. It's dreams.
Yeah, and, he came out and did Rom. I appreciated that. So let's see what he comes up with.
For Thor, I have Jason Aaron, who's doing a fantastic job on Thor, and an artist who I haven't really seen his work over at Marvel, Cary Nord. Cary Nord was the artist on the rebirth of Conan over at Dark Horse. And his Conan stuff almost looked like full paintings on a page, even though that's the way it was colored and the way it was inked. But just beautiful, beautiful work, and I don't see enough of him anywhere. Can you imagine him and Jason Aaron doing a run on Thor with Jason Aaron's love of the Marvel mythology around Thor? Oh, that would be heaven. I said before, I think Jason Aaron's run is just as good as Walt Simonson's. Him and Cary Nord together, that would be stuff that you'd put in a masterwork the minute it's over.
Funny you should mention old Walt, because I have him down for Thor. What I loved about Simonson's Thor is that he made Asgard a world so complex. He brought back characters that have only had a few scenes. Asgard wasn't just a bunch of, we'll do what Thor says, fight for Odin, blah, blah, blah. I enjoyed the stories that took place in Asgard more than I did when Thor came to Earth. And I would just love to see him. Maybe he could do it concurrently. Thor, female, male, unworthy, do that. But Walt, what the hell's going on with everybody else in Asgard besides the Warriors 3, or besides Loki, besides, I don't even know who's in charge of Asgard anyways these days. That's how far out of the loop I was. Last thing I saw, there was Odin come back and wanted his way, and the All-Mother was like, I don't think so. So I got some reading to do. But that's who I would like to see back. I know he's kind of doing his thing at
Ragnarok.
But hey, do them both. Ain't bothering me none. We're not into exclusive contracts here, if you know what I'm saying.
Next book that I have is Captain America, and it's somebody who only has done one Captain America story that I know of, although he did use Captain America in one of his most famous stories, Frank Miller.
Ooh.
Frank Miller, he did the one story in Marvel Fanfare about Captain America saving a flag from a fire, but he also used Captain America in Born Again better than I think most anybody used him during that time period. And I think it would be fun, just give Frank Miller Captain America, and he would... One of the misunderstandings people have is he knows the history of comics, so when he said he was going to do a propaganda story, like from World War II, and then he did one, people are like, oh, it's all jingoistic and everything, and he said, that's what I said I was going to do. But I could see him doing a really solid 2 to 3 year run on Captain America that would define the character going forward. Just like he did on Daredevil, where he would reach into the past, see what made Captain America work in the past, and use it in today's world.
I talked about Richard taking care of the horror side of Marvel. I'd like to appoint Jim Starlin, the absolute ruler of Marvel Cosmic. I loved the Annihilation Wave. I thought it was so brilliant that this big cosmic series with major implications was going on while Earth was bound in their own little civil war and didn't really pay attention. There's a couple scenes in Nova where when he landed back on the planet, of course Stark was on him, we got this super villain registration act. He's like, you gotta be blanking kidding me. I don't think he used the word blanking, but this is Marvel after all. His concepts that he's come up with have just been brilliant. I love anytime you say Starlin, especially with Thanos. I'm like, I'm there. There's so much more of the Marvel universe they could explore. You could make up. Yeah, you got on one side of the universe, you got what they call the big celestial head.
Nowhere.
What about the other side? There's two sides to this universe. I mean, and if you're thinking three-dimensionally, there's an up-down. There are multiple sides. As vast as this universe is, I mean, even our real universe, I mean, how many billions and billions of galaxies do we see? You could really go crazy and have a lot of fun. Bring in some science fiction writers, say, okay, comb through Marvel, here's a race that was seen once. Go out and have some fun. We want to make some characters iconic like Groot, Just a lot of untapped potential there, and I think if you had a director doing it and following along, and if you got to bring in the Earth occasionally, but I'd make this not an Earthbound area, just something to have fun with. I get George Perez; he's been known to do some decent galactic artwork. Ron Lim, who's that? Phil Jimenez? Am I saying his name right? Jimenez, yeah. Get him going. And Jim, in my world, you can draw, so That's one thing. It's his dream team. When you get to reality, yeah, I know George's eyes, Jim's hands, but hey, this is our dream. You make your own. Speaking of which, what's your next one, Cory?
I would have 2 X-Men books.
Only 2.
Yep. First one would be X-Men, written by Keith Giffen, who hasn't done a lot at Marvel, but when he has, it was Annihilation. And he's shown in the past he can handle a big team with Legion of Superheroes. And I would have it drawn by Greg Capullo, who has done a lot of stuff over the years. He did Spawn, he did Batman. He hasn't done much at Marvel since the early 90s. And one of the things about the X-Men that I think has gone away is the X-Men was kind of where the art style for mainstream comics was set. You had John Byrne, and then you had Paul Smith, and then you had John Romita Jr., and then you had Silvestri, and then you had Jim Lee. And that's kind of, the X-Men is kind of, this is what is considered the cool mainstream art. And I think Greg Capullo would do a beautiful job at that. Now, over the second book would be Uncanny X-Men. Remember, Joe, I said fantasy, right?
Yes.
I would have it written by screenwriter Aaron Sorkin, who did The West Wing, Sports Night, Newsroom, and a show that only lasted one season, that's Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip, which was supposedly backstage at a Saturday Night Live type show. He's shown he can handle an ensemble, but the other thing, and the reason I thought of him, he's good at the big crisis tied into current events. One of the big problems he had on Studio 60 was he kept wanting to tell stories about what was going on in the news rather than stories about what it's like to work on a Saturday Night Live type show. It would get the X-Men relevant again. I think one of the problems is when they did the No More Mutants, they got away from the fact that the X-Men kind of echoed what was going on. The legacy virus was kind of like a version of AIDS. They're hunted and feared by those that they want to protect was always a theme that went through it. And Claremont really hammered on it being, Professor X was Martin Luther King and Magneto was Malcolm X sort of thing. They've gotten away from that, and I think you get somebody like Aaron Sorkin in there who's just got that in his blood. He's never done a comic before, but then again, neither had a lot of people who've come into comics and done X-Men books, like Joss Whedon, who did an X-Men book, and Jeff Loeb came from movies. All of these people coming from other areas. Let's get some big names back doing comics again. And I would just have those 2 as the main X-Men books. One of the things about my list is there are some creator-focused books that I don't have. I don't have Squirrel Girl because I think Squirrel Girl has to be done by the creators who are doing it. Same with Ms. Marvel. Ms. Marvel has to be done by the people who are doing it. I think that these are kind of like Marvel's big hitters. So on your big hitters, you want some big hitting names.
That's interesting because one of the ideas that I came up with that I just mentioned but I didn't really think of is me and my names. West Wing. Aaron
Sorkin.
Make a political comic. One thing that drives me crazy in the Marvel Universe is that, the politics is stupid. Like I was just rereading, the Registration Act, the president took it away. No, president can't do that. Much as he wants to. He can say, we're not enforcing it anymore. But Congress is the only group that can come in and say the law is gone. Case in point, from my own thing. You remember when TSA banned lighters because someone got the idea that Richard Reed, the shoe bomber idiot, could have used the lighter to light his shoe and take a plane down. So for a year or so, anytime you tried to bring a lighter in, and believe me, there's a lot of smokers at the airport. Nope, got to take it away. Sorry, got to take it away. Congress never took away the law that says you cannot bring lighters on a plane. What they did is they stopped funding the money to get rid of the 15 to 16 million lighters we confiscated. Yes, voluntarily gave up, whatever. The point was that was a lot of hazmat, a lot of boom, cost a lot of money to get rid of because you just can't throw that type of stuff in the garbage and hope for a good outcome. So that's how it would work. To have somebody bring in the Marvel side, I mean, they kind of did this years ago with a Bruce Wayne running for politics thing, and it was just in Brave and Bold, so it never really counted anyways. But I think that would be cool. A hero, I don't know, make it Hawkeye, accidentally runs for something, people love him because of what he did with the Hulk, boom, he's suddenly elected into politics. Now he has to deal with it. In a similar vein, back to more of my ideas, I'd like to see the romance side of Marvel kind of kicked up. And I'm not necessarily talking, oh, I can't believe I can't get a date, give a gnash your teeth Supergirl. I'm talking things like Tom Zare did with Love and Capes, or what he's continuing to do with IDW. I mean, he can show that he can make a realistic, romantic, even a married couple interesting to read. Have Frank Cho draw it. Have Bill Tucci come in and draw it. Make the women look drop-dead gorgeous. Matter of fact, let's start with, we'll probably have to max line this. Let's adapt Joan Lee's The Pleasure Palace to comics. That would be kind of a fun thing to have in there. Hey, it's my fantasy. You like it, do it your own. I'm sure if Cory wanted to up and do a mystery line, he'd have tons of mystery people in it. We've talked about how, was it Identity Crisis? Everybody loved it, because it's the first time that the mainstream comics actually had a mystery they had to fight in the superhero universe. And it was written by a mystery writer. Cory, help me with the name.
No, I can't think of it off the top of my head.
Put him on the spot. I should have asked Strode. He would have got it that way. But that was the way, and you even said, I know who did it right away, because it's always the second person that is a tempted victim, and they usually survive. That usually is a tip-off in a typical mystery.
Brad Meltzer.
Yes. Get people doing it like that. I don't know if Bill Tucci and Frank Cho want to run, if that's something they would want to run, because they've drawn strong women characters before. Better yet, have them do, you know what, you're going to do kind of an all-women's squad thing. I read it in a recent She-Hulk one-shot that it was like a ladies' legion or something, and it had Thundra and She-Hulk and Invisible Woman and Valkyrie. And
Fearless Defenders.
I don't remember that, but, a run like that. And you got to have a decent artist, because you got to have the women look good. You got to have some, let's get, I'm trying to think of his name. Did all the wonderful cover. Brian Bowen. We need you for covers again. So, that's a two for one. I give you 2 for 1. You guys, let's get working on this. I'll get my best people working on it.
Let's see. Next book I have is Wolverine. Yep, yours, or Ike Permutter. The Wolverine I want, there was a brief run that was drawn by Derek Robertson and written by Greg Rucka. And the first story arc was Wolverine breaking up a kidnapping and slavery ring that was very much based on a true story out of L.A. And I think Wolverine, when he's shoved into the superhero role, it doesn't work really well with him solo, because Wolverine operates by different rules when it's done right, and I've never really bought Wolverine as a solo superhero. I can see him with the X-Men, I can see him with the Avengers, but on his own, he should have, I think the proper term would be men's adventure. There was a bunch of pulpy men's adventure novels that ran through the 70s and 80s, stuff like The Destroyer and The Executioner and Death Merchant. And I would like to see Wolverine in that mode, where it's very dark, very crime-oriented. So I would want the Ed Brubaker, Sean Phillips team, who've done stuff like Criminal and Incognito and Velvet and Kill or Be Killed. Brubaker has shown that he can bring that style to superheroes with his unbelievably acclaimed Captain America run. Put him on Wolverine. Let him do 2 or 3 years. He didn't fit when it was the X-Men main book, but have him do crime stories with Wolverine.
You know, you said that, and suddenly another name popped up that I could add to the horror line. Maybe Andrew Voss. Am I saying that name right?
Yep, Voss.
Or maybe have him do more of like the street-level crime series with him and maybe Chuck Dixon, because they've always done good things with that. One of the things I would probably bring back, I want crossovers. I'm not talking in Marvel. I want them with other companies. There are so many fun things that could be done. You know, when you're thinking crossovers, and I'm not talking, Obnoxo the Clown meets Puddles the Pity Party Clown. Hey,
I'd buy that.
I'd buy that. Or Kangaroo Man meets.
It's just Kangaroo.
Oh, just Kangaroo?
Just
okay.
Kangaroo.
Kangaroo meets, I don't know, fill in your own, Crocodile Dundee. But,
you know what I'd buy in a heartbeat?
What's that?
Kangaroo versus Kite Man.
Oh, dude.
Kite
Drawn
Man,
by Sergio Argoni.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, but I see so many crossovers coming. IDW's doing a lot with DC. I've seen them through Dark Horse. They just come up with some fun stuff, some fun teaming of characters. And if you want to be sneaky, like they did with Savage Dragon, the Howard the Duck thing, hell, you got Disney characters to play with. Let's make the Howard the Duck fights Donald Duck. It could happen. We got a nexus of all realities. Just I want to see him come back. It doesn't have to be a grandiose JLA Avengers thing, but it could be just something fun, like when John Byrne had Galactus and Darkseid face off. So, but that's something that I would see. I wouldn't ban them necessarily. They got to be good. They got to be fun. Just not to do. I mean, the Punisher Batman crossovers were terrible. Or was that which one? Yeah, there were 2 of those. We'll talk about that in freaking someday. And no death rates!
He's gonna puke! He's gonna puke!
Oh, next up.
Next I have New Avengers. And the team I have is one that hasn't worked before. Tom King, who's now writing Batman over at DC and wrote that amazing Vision series. I'd like to see him play with Marvel Universe, kind of like the way he played with the Vision. Because if you read the Vision, he knows the Vision's history, and he used that history as part of going forward. But I'd like it drawn by Tom Grummett, who I've always liked Tom Grummett's style because he's able to draw team books where you can differentiate the characters. He can have big crowd scenes that flow with the story. He's working with Carl Kessel on Section 0, and I can't wait for that book to come out. But Tom Grummett's one of those guys who seems to have fallen out of favor with Marvel and DC, and it's a damn shame because he's still really good at superhero books. And if you're going to have somebody like Tom King writing it, you need an artist who can make it clear. One of the reasons the Vision worked is, while the story was complicated, the art told that story. It wasn't a lot of excess stuff. So there's your 2 Avengers books.
I would like to see the Ultraverse come back. And I don't buy the idea that it can't do it. You guys published Miracle Man, for God's sakes. And that had more convoluted birth people involved in it than anything I know. And you don't have to bring the whole Ultraverse back, although I think it would be one hell of a crossover. Matter of fact, you shouldn't bring it all back at once. I've talked in fantasy bookings, how I would do it. They've already laid the groundwork in a long-forgotten Avengers Ultra Force crossover, 2 books. They found out about the Ultraverse, they nuked it, all these heroes escaped, the ones that survived, to the God Wheel. They're looking for revenge. Remember what I talked about the Jim Starlin thing? That God Wheel's out there somewhere. Maybe not in the corner where the nowhere is, but it's out there. Let's use these concepts. If you got to pay a little scratch up, maybe not under Ike's reign, but, in my dream team, we're going to have Prime in the... matter of fact, we could have a Prime Sentry crossover. Yeah, I know he's dead, but, so was Bucky for a while. Look how popular he is.
He's back!
And that's something, too, that kind of... Well, I'll save that for my next one, but... Go ahead, Corey, you're up.
Daredevil.
Swing!
Daredevil has been a crime book for years and years and years. Let's put a crime author on it. Max Allan Collins, who writes fantastic crime novels and has written comics.
I'll borrow you Andrew Vach for a while if you want. Because he's real. He's dark.
Yeah, Vachas is very dark. I've read all of Vachas's novels. And I'm one of the few people who, every so often, somebody will ask him about Batman Ultimate Evil, and he said he never got more hate mail than when he wrote that novel. And for me, that's one of my favorite Batman stories ever. But Max Allan Collins knows how to put together a mystery, knows how to put together a crime story. He's currently working on taking the Mickey Spillane manuscripts that were unfinished and finishing them up. And I like Mickey Spillane, but I know Mickey Spillane's writing style was very limited. Collins actually makes his stuff better when he finishes it up. And I know some people say that's sacrilege, but they're wrong. And for artist, it's an artist who did a 4-issue run on Daredevil, doesn't do a lot of comics, does a lot of covers. David Mack, who mostly works in watercolor, but he's the one who did the Echo story in Daredevil a long time ago. And I want him doing more comics. And I think with Max Collins' very real style, David Mack's more impressionistic watercolor style would be an interesting mix. I don't know if it would work, but I'd love to see it.
Hey, Quesada, what are you doing for the next year? We're going to send you on World Tour number 2. Remember when he first became High Muckety Muck in Marvel? He went around and he went to England and he talked to all sorts of people, including Alan Moore, about, hey, I know we've had bad things in the past. Let's get on good footing. And, some of it, Alan Moore's just not interested in comics. So, but I want you to talk to anybody and other people. I want you to talk to Golden Age, Silver Age. Is there any Golden Age people left? People we haven't seen. We constantly are going on and on about why doesn't Keith Pollard have a book? Is he retired? Does he not want to do it? But let's do one shots. Neil Gaiman, you got a character you want to try in the Marvel Universe? I mean, I'm not expecting you to cough up your own because of the whole work for hire bullshit and things like that. Tell you what, Neil, take Sleepwalker, make him Marvel Sandman. I mean,
it's Sandman done right.
Done right. Peter David, you're good for stuff. I mean, you could just do a who's who of different people. It doesn't necessarily have to even be people who've written in comics. I mean, I like the idea they went out and they talked to CM Punk, had him do a Drax series. You usually team them up with someone who, here's my idea, here's what I wrote, and then they'll help them make a script out of it that can be comic related. But there's always people. There's people doing small press stuff you could bring in. Remember, there was a guy, what did he do his book? True Swamp, John Lewis. He wrote Robin for a while. Good run. I don't know what he's doing now. I haven't heard from him in years, but, whereas Corey, you're like, okay, these are names, these are people that could really do stuff. I'd like to find some people that haven't done anything in a while, or maybe some smaller press guy. They used to do that. For a while we saw, what was it? I can't say it, Megalomaniac Spider-Man that Peter Pegg wrote. Just things like that. They don't have to be in continuity, but if you're going to do a one-shot, and I'm going to mention a few in Freaking and Geeking when we come up that I've read, make it something fun. Make it something that make you go, hey, whoa, I'll plunk down my $4.99 just to see this, especially if you know it's just a one-shot. If they've got an idea for a miniseries, great. I'm not saying grab them and throw them on a series unless they come up with something great, like you talked about with Mike Allred, both his Silver Surfer and then what you came up with. I just think it'd be fun. It'd get an idea, just a sense of, hey, these are some ideas. And of course we could, put an obligatory 500 million, variant covers on each one.
Well, we're getting close to an hour, Joe, so I'm going to give one more, and then we will finish up with this next
All right,
week.
and I'll narrow it down to one more.
For Doctor Strange.
Okay.
Matt Wagner, writer-artist.
Intriguing. Tell me more.
Well, he's done Batman. He's done The Shadow. He's done a lot of pulp characters. And Mage is my favorite comic of all time. He hasn't done anything at Marvel. So why not give him Marvel's #1 mystic character? He knows mythology. One of the things about Mage that I learned as I read it was he really digs into Arthurian mythology, uses a lot of stuff in new ways. I'd love to see him play in the Marvel Universe, because he never has. And his Batman stories were great. The trilogy he did of the Batman and the Monster Men, where he's kind of retelling the very, very early Batman stories, was unbelievably good. Even his Demon miniseries, where he kind of fused the Kirby character with how Alan Moore had changed him and did a 4-issue miniseries, was phenomenal. Give him Doctor Strange, let him run wild.
I think that's a lot of what we're thinking. Give a creative team, run wild. Cory, you collect Hot Wheels?
I do not. I have a few. I have the Yellow Submarine ones from last year. You gave me 20 years ago. You gave me the Brady Bunch.
Oh yeah,
the Family Truckster.
Yeah, and they did that was a Matchbox one. They've since done a Hot Wheel one, and I got to admit, I was, I'm not in San Diego. One of the things I do every year is comb the exclusives just to check to see what's going on, and they have the Spider-Mobile.
Oh yeah, Dan Slott was showing that off.
Yeah, I ended up, somebody had one cheap, a pre-order. They say, because it was a pre-order, you had to, I want to buy this many, so I bought one, and it might end up like the Wonder Woman Invisible Plane when I bought it years ago. I'll sit on it for, I bought that for like $25, and now it's like a $200 collectible. I'm hoping I can get a hold of a couple more cheap, because I really want to open one of these. But they have something called the Hot Wheels Club. This is going to tie into comics, so I'll make it quick. But in the Hot Wheels Club, they have what they call the Red Line collectors, where every month you can jump in and buy an exclusive Red Line comic. See, I'm already jumping ahead. Hot Wheel, and they're usually $15 plus shipping, and it's usually a higher quality model that, you see tons of them pop up on eBay. Sometimes the muscle cars go real expensive. Some of the more complex cars go expensive. I would kind of ape this and do kind of, probably through Marvel Unlimited or Marvel.com. This is the Collector Club. And what we're going to do is we're going to make high-end comics, possibly reprints, hopefully original, only available to club members. And to be a club member, you got to join, and there's usually like a $20 fee, and then you get a perk for it. Kind of like something like, we've talked about Wham, we've talked about Foom, but there were never those exclusive things that's what drives the collectors into the market. We've seen the after effect. We've talked about those chrome-plated things that I sold at the comic shop, and my brain's farting again. They were $20, nobody bought them. Now they're like $150, $200 on eBay's. That type of thing. It's going to be a high-end thing. Not everybody's going to care. You're not going to want to plop $10, $20, $30 down for a rare Chrome edition thing. Some people might. Or maybe we'll make it an exclusive autographed one. I mean, Dynamic Forces does it. Maybe that's the best way to do it. Do it through, not Dynamic Forces. Yeah, it is Dynamic Forces. I'm sorry, I misspoke. But just something to create some fun. I mean, not everything someone's going to plunk down and do it. I mean, Rob Liefeld did a book on his website where he finally appeared as himself on a comic. You could buy one for $20. You could buy an autograph for $41. I didn't do it. I wish I had, but it's just something fun to get some attention and get maybe more people driven into the Marvel site itself. So just a couple of different ideas, and these would be only available through the club. They are not for retailers, or if you resell them on eBay, so be it. But I mean, every month I can go to the Hot Wheel websites and check it out to see who bought what, and you're usually limited by how many you can buy. Sometimes it's one, sometimes it's two, but just kind of bring a fun thing. Drive the collectors insane.
You know who's not going to be insane?
That's a tough list.
These guys, our sponsors.
Oh, it was so obvious.
That's right. Here at the Solitaire Rose Radio Network, we have ads, and our first sponsor is me. That's right. You're charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard. I have my first book out with Dangerous Dan Moore. It's the first 100 strips of our online web strip, Worldwide News, the story of the lowest rated cable news network. And you can get yourself a copy with commentary, with all sorts of extras, with signatures and everything. Just email Dan over at lordshadowflame@gmail.com. Our top sponsor, who's been with us since day one, is DreamHost. DreamHost.com. You need yourself a website, and DreamHost.com is the #1 web host in the whole known universe. Just head over to DreamHost.com, put in the code KRAYZ, KRAYZ, get $20 off your first year. How can you beat that? Our other sponsor is Graze, GRAZE.com. Healthy snacks for a healthy lifestyle. Just head over to Graze, put in the code CORYS3R5P. Your first and fifth box are free. You could get them weekly. You could get them bi-weekly. You could get them monthly. You could just order a whole bunch of them. It's great stuff to keep you away from the vending machine at work. Now, if you would like to leave a comment for any of the podcasts that we do, we'd love those. Go ahead and email us at solitairerosenetwork@gmail.com, or you can call 952-856-0519. Operators are standing by. Okay, it's just a place that will record your calls, but we'll play them on the air. We'll answer your questions. We love getting feedback. Tell us what you think. Ask a question. Suggest a topic. Be a guest. Send us your stuff. SolitaireRoseNetwork@gmail.com. If you would like to advertise on any of the Solitaire Rose radio shows, you can. Just email us at SolitaireRoseNetwork@gmail.com. Subject advertising. Thanks.
And then after we talk about the sponsors, of course, we have to plug the upcoming shows we have. Because, Joe, we got a lot of shows that's coming up.
We are a showy group.
This week, we've got a new episode of Bad Advice. It was
Ooh,
supposed to be last week.
Doesn't sound good.
But, yeah.
Yeah.
When we get to Freaking, I'll explain why some of these shows got bumped a week. But a new episode of Bad Advice coming out. Last week, on Friday, had a new episode of Solitaire Rose Radio where I sat down with Patrick McAvoy, and we talked our favorite Kirby inkers. And we even talked about Vince Colletta, and it was polite.
No, I don't believe it either, folks. You're going to have to listen to it to find out.
Well, one of the things about Vince Colletta is, and Patrick talks about it, you even mentioned Vince Colletta, and there are people online who, he was a terrible human being and a hack and a blah, blah, blah. And I give a nice, spirited discussion as to why I didn't care for his inking without calling him human scum.
Which is rare for you.
I don't call people human scum.
To their face.
No,
Inhuman scum, maybe.
No, I wait till it's the middle of the night, and then I wake up screaming their name and then reminding myself that they're human scum. Also, a new episode of Novelcast this week. So all kinds of stuff coming. And next month, we are doing a special episode about Jack Kirby for Jack Kirby's 100th what do they call it? Anniversary, birthday?
I think they say birthday.
Kirby's
we know
100th
he's not
birthday.
with us, but we're still, if he was, he would be 100.
So if you would like to contribute, you can go ahead and call our phone number, which is right here.
952-856-0519.
Or you can email an MP3 to solitairerosenetwork@gmail.com. Try to keep it under 5 minutes, and we're going to work in as many as we can. It's going to be a special episode. We'll have some special guests.
Ooh.
And going to be just talking Jack Kirby for a couple hours. So a lot coming up, and you never know when you're going to get a new episode from Dave and Stephanie. They had a 2-podcast day last week, Joe.
They're out of control.
They make me feel like I'm lazy.
And crazy. You're also crazy.
And here's them talking about it.
Scrabbling Across the West, a fortnightly retelling of Dave and Stephanie.
Wait, fortnightly?
That means every 2 weeks.
I know what it means. What if we wanted to do it more or less often than every 2 weeks?
Well, that wouldn't be holding down the fort, would it?
Oh, you're funny. Okay, how about frequently?
All right, I'm good with that.
Okay.
Scrabbling Across the West, a frequent retelling of Dave and Stephanie Kofel's adventures in traveling, making music, and playing Scrabble across the Western Hemisphere. It's all about the people, the places, and the game. Scrabbling Across the West. Bye-bye.
Bye!
So there are all my plugs, and now that I've done my plugs, we talk about Joe's plugs. No, not his hair plugs. His plugs for eBay. Joe, what's going on the eBays?
Well, I thought we'd take a spirited look at maybe, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's look at the last 6 things I sold on eBay, just for halibuts.
Okay, hold on.
I love me halibuts.
All right, I've got the first one right here.
All right.
Wait, how do I have this if you sold it and sent it already?
I am that damn good.
Man, I just broke kayfabe.
Yep. It's fun, isn't it?
Feels dirty.
It does. Cory, have you heard of Non?
The bread?
Nope. This is a comic from Red Ink out of 1997 from Jordan Crane. There were 3 people involved, Jordan Crane, Larry Stone, and Ted May. They put together an adult black and white comic that had art and stories, not so much profanity or adult language. Stories were funny, and highlight of the series would probably be Tales of Neruda, set against the rural hills of the Appalachian Mountains, where where investigators of hippie communes make a startling discovery.
Goddamn hippies.
Yeah, their stone idol is alive. There was only 4 issues.
Probably because of drum circles.
Extremely hard to find, and I had a single copy of number 1. Don't recall ever reading it, but I never will because I did sell it. Folks, before DC went all New 52, and I talked about it last podcast, take a close look if you happen to score some of them variant covers. You might want to get them protected because some of them are quite pricey. For example, the Wonder Woman 609 Alex Garner variant cover. Sold mine for $69.99. Don't know why, but it could be just that everybody was stopped buying because they knew the New 52 was coming. But, if you've got those, I talked about the Power Girl one last time. If you're looking to blow out your comics, always take a quick browse through because you never know what you'll find. Another good example is the Cartoon Network starring Space Ghost Coast to Coast. I don't know what it was with some of the later ones, but nobody was buying them, and they're running $20 to $60 depending on which one you got. The one I had was number 12. I say had as in sold. Some other things, Cory, time to ask the Strode.
Uh-oh.
You knew it was coming.
No, it didn't.
Yes, you did. I got to do it.
You didn't put it in the show notes.
I know. That's because it's in the contract. See, wait, if you move that peanut butter stain, see, one episode. Creative use for peanut butter. Are you ready, my friend?
I suppose.
Cory, tell me about Welcome Back, Kotter.
Welcome Back, Kotter was a TV sitcom in the 70s that launched the career of John Travolta and was one of the first TV writing jobs for comic book writer and Jack Kirby assistant Mark Evanier, who was the showrunner. He also wrote the Welcome Back, Kotter comic book for DC as part of the failed DC TV line.
Yeah, Welcome Back, Kotter. The first issue was in 76. It went 10 issues. Elliot S. Magan, Tony Isabella, Mark Avanier, Bob Tooney, Scott Elderman wrote various series, drawn by, Jack Sparling, Rick Estrada, Bob Oskner, Bill Drought. That's pretty much it. Those are all of the guys on it. And good, bad, indifferent. It's out there. The show was fun. It was based on the comedy of Gabriel Kaplan. And I can't remember the actress that played his wife. Ooh, she was hot. I don't even recall if Gabe stuck around. I thought the final season there was some type of dispute and he was gone because it ended up that his wife ended up teaching or something. I don't know.
It was one of those shows where it pretty much ran through. It was huge for a couple of years, but then once Travolta left, the ratings just kind of faltered. Yeah,
they brought him back and the ratings bumped. I remember they had a episode where it was forbidden or adult, mature audience for parent advisory recommended or something where, all of a sudden I've been watching this show and now I can't. And what it was is one of the girls, and played by another beautiful redheaded actress, last seen falling off a hood in one of the Police Academy movies. She was sobbing and they find out that she was pregnant. And so she accused she said one of the fathers was one of the sweat hogs, and it rolled around and everything. It was done in a half hour under 70s guidance, and eventually she had the principal came in, and it was a big hubbub, and she had to name who the father was because the father wasn't coming forward, and of course there was a lot of accusation, a lot of jokes. She goes in front of all the different sweat hogs, and some look up, some look down. They look at Horshack, and he just laughs. No, he was, whatever his laugh was. And then, of course, they said, well, you didn't name anybody. Well, maybe I'm not pregnant. What? Yeah, I just did it to get you and load out sweat hogs. And even you, she points at Gabriel Carter, the teacher. Because now it's out and it's on your record that this happened. Kind of a pointless episode, but it was a very special, if not limited, episode.
A very special episode.
Let's see, last one we'll look at. Cory, tell me about KISS, Psycho Circus.
That was the Image book.
Yep.
And our buddy Angel Medina drew some of it.
He did, quite a bit, actually.
And I did not read it, even though I love Angel Medina. I'm not a big fan of KISS, which I know loses me a lot of cred. But Gene Simmons always struck me as kind of I'll be honest, an asshole.
He fell over on stage recently.
Asshole. A greedy, obnoxious, lying
asshole.
But
he had nothing to do, as far as I know, with the comic, although they probably did. Because this was published through Image. The first run was Image. I think, is IDW doing one now? But
I think they picked up the rights to it. No, it's either them or Boom or Dynamite or somebody. And
31 issues. The later issues are pricey because, again, nobody was buying them. By 31, nobody cared. Most of them run $1. This set I sold for first 6 issues for $5. And I'll just
Don't tell Angel.
Well, he didn't want to sign them. Actually, I didn't bring them to him.
Angel's listening. Angel, I would not have sold comics that you drew.
Yeah, well, I do have other ones he drew, like his first ones. But, I'm a big KISS fan, but the comic I didn't like as much. I still got stuff going. I got stuff coming up.
Angel's going to kick you in the shins next time he sees you.
I'll bring him to KFC. We're cool. You want something, go to Crazy, KRAYZ. Let me know what you think. Keep the store, yay or nay. I got to make a decision by next podcast. And, if do you use it? Do you not use it? Is it, I know when I go on eBay, I just type in what I'm looking for. But I always make this offer. If you go and you check out the store, see all the fun stuff I have, if you ever buy something, send me a quick note either through eBay or through my personal email, crazycomics@gmail.com, and I will give you something special. It may be something we're going to be talking about in Geeking coming up. You never know.
Something infectious.
You just don't know. I happen to know the secret identity of the cleaner, and I will send him to your house to clean, even though he won't be your friend afterwards.
Well, now it's my favorite part of the show.
Those of you that I promised, I'm remaking a new set of keys for the Strode compound, so worry not. Oh, and by the way, don't go this week. I happen to know it's occupied.
My favorite part of the show. No, not where Joe reads his erotic fan fiction about the Wasp.
No, I was just going to read out of the Pleasure Palace. Jan struggled to keep calm, but she felt her temperature rise.
No, it's freaking and geeking. Joe, what are you freaking on?
Pretty much just my health. I've talked about having rheumatoid arthritis. You can't tell by my voice, but I am really creaky and achy. Some of it may be because we've just had humid weather up here in Minnesota, and I do not like... I like humid weather about as much as Oprah Winfrey likes canned ham, but not. I just don't like it, and I don't feel good at it. I'm sweating, and then my rheumatoid kicks in. I mean, when I was in the desert Southwest, and you can go to the podcast when I was on the road with Mr. Joe, I felt fine. Vegas, Farmington, New Mexico, I could sit outside, 100 degrees, I felt good. But the humidity is just kicking me. And, of course, that combines with the fact that work, our loads were up, and, of course, our manpower is down. We have one guy took a promotion. One guy, unfortunately, he's been gone for a couple months, must have been a really bad heart attack because he hasn't come. Keep hearing, he's coming back. He has not. Another gentleman's out for a month. Getting surgery done on his back. Imagine that, working baggage and having back surgery. So it's just been rough. I'm falling behind trying to get my comics ready for FallCon coming up October 7th, where I hope to be there and blow all this stuff out for $1. Some of it I'll be talking about on Geeking. So that's pretty much all that's really freaking me, because if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. Cory, what are you freaking on?
Joe, you know that one of my favorite TV shows is the show At Midnight, hosted by Chris Hardwick.
After Midnight, it's hosted by Chris Hardley.
No,
Chris Hardley.
At Midnight.
Oh, never mind.
After around 600 episodes in 4 years, it's coming to an end next month.
Oh, wow.
And the reason that they're giving is that Chris Hardwick and Comedy Central decided that it was time to bring it to a close. One of the things is that Chris Hardwick, he's doing all the stuff on the Nerdist podcast. He's basically he's doing a talk show on AMC every week when it's not Talking Dead or Talking Preacher or Talking Saul. It's just talking with Chris Hardwick. He's doing a game show on NBC, and they're looking to give him another show on NBC. So to me, it seems like he's just does not have enough time to do the show anymore. But it's a damn shame, because the premise of the show was that they, will ask questions about what's going on the internet. And really what it was a showcase for new comedians. And there were a lot of comedians who, first time I saw them, first time a lot of people saw them, was on that show. People like Ron Funches, or Ali Wong, or Doug Benson. People like that. This was a great place for them to come on. They could be funny for a half hour, not have to carry a show. And the writers on it were excellent. It was just a very funny show. It was a lot of fun. And I actually have liked it more than The Daily Show, because it's very fast-paced. They don't bog down. Some of The Daily Show's interviews are good, but most of them you're just kind of, okay, you're pushing your latest movie or book, and But, one of the shows that I enjoy is going away. Another thing I'm geeking on is, Joe, I'll talk more about it in Geeking, but I took Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday off from the full-time job.
What?
Because I have vacation days, and I'm actually taking more vacation days next month and a few more in October. But because I didn't plan very well. Basically, it was, okay, things are really calm right now. I've got stuff that's going to pop up in early August. I'm going to get these days off. I had already signed up to work a bunch of shifts at the group home. So yesterday, on Tuesday, I was done with work at 5 o'clock, and I went to the Mall of America to get my Timbits, I need to have vacation donuts, and then I had to go to work. And then I got home, and yesterday I pretty much I watched some TV, I cleaned the living room, and I slept. And I was at work at 6. And the work yesterday is another freaking that I'll get to in a minute. But tonight, every night I'm sleeping at the group home, but I do have my days free. The problem is it's kind of wet and humid and rainy, and I can't sit out on the deck and read comics. I'm sitting on the couch and reading comics. But tomorrow, you and I are going to run around all day.
Yeah.
And Sunday, I'm going to be going to see at least Spider-Man, and I want to go see Baby Driver and Wonder Woman as well. But I don't know if I had the patience for 3 movies in one afternoon. But it's nice to get a little bit of time to just kind of chill. I'm using it as kind of a reset to, get the house where it's not chaos, because I'm only home for 2 hours a night. But yeah, I wish I had planned a little better so that I didn't have to go into work, because then I could stay up late and watch movies, and I'm not going to get to do that. Geeking. Joe, what are you geeking on?
Oh, I got lots of geeking, because I went to a Comic-Con last weekend. It was Midsummer Comic-Con at the American Legion in Richfield. And, my wife's always like, you always say you're trying to get rid of stuff. Why are you buying more? I said, well, because I like buying graphic novels. And the 2 I got in my collection are Legends, the collection from DC. This, of course, was the series John Byrne, John Ostrander, Len Wein, and Carl Kessel did. Basically, I think the Submariner, no, not Submariner. See, I'm already crossing guys over. Phantom Stranger and Darkseid have a bet that has to do with heroes, and this leads into a bunch of books. It was kind of a summer event, if I recall. The collection itself is mostly John Byrne art, so I absolutely love it. And another one, of course, I might have this, but hey, for $5, it can go on an eBay pile. The Man of Steel by John Byrne, the much...
Oh, the 6-issue miniseries, yeah.
And I just, you'd think for a guy who bought, I think I bought like 25 copies of it when it first came out, because back then Pat and I were doing the Weekend Warrior thing, doing, mini-cons, like are starting to pop up all over the place again. I think the last batch, the last final you get it sale that Gruber did, he finally blew out the last batch of those. I didn't keep any. It's just one of those books. It's probably no real value. There's a couple collector editions on eBay that actually go for stuff. The one I got was a retailer thing where they took the 6 issues, pressed it together in a book form. And I don't know where I picked it up from, but it goes like about $50 or so. Never kept the originals. Well, now I have them, so I can read them. Speaking of reading, I actually got a chance to sit down and read a bunch of comics. And these are all things that were in my vast accumulation of crap. Some of it's going to actually, most of the stuff I'm talking about now is going to the dollar bins. So you can either find it for $1, you can email it to me, or mail me $1 and I'll mail it to you, whatever. But when I was talking earlier about She-Hulk, Cosmic Collision by Peter David and, let's see, penciler Mohamed Assar, Scott Hanna inker. This is the one where a bunch of the female heroes get together to fight another cosmic battle, and we see Quasar back when she was a female, because even one of the characters, and this is what makes Peter David such a great writer. When the one character sees Quasar, goes, "All right, I don't recall Quasar having breasts, but if you say so." Before that, I was Phyla, sister of Genus, son of Marvel, soulmate of Moondragon. Captain Marvel had a daughter and Moondragon's gay? Whoa, obviously I've missed some stuff. So, and it's all female saying it, so don't get any umbrage at me. A fun one-shot series. These are the type that I bring back. On the DC side of things, I read World's Funnest by Evan Dorkin and Friends, where Superman and Batman. Folks,
yeah.
This is in canon I don't see why it couldn't be. And yes, everybody dies, so you should go out and see it. Evan Dorkin's another guy. Dude, bring back What the? You're the director. Have some fun. Get some comedy writers to write some stuff. This was just brilliant. And what's fun about this is that he had all sorts of artists. Mike Allred, Brian Boland, Frank Cho, Dave Gibbons, Dave Hernandez, Stuart Immonen, Doug Mankey, Phil Jimenez, David Mazzucchelli, Frank Miller, Alex Ross, Ty Templeton, Bruce Timm, and Teddy the Wonder Lizard. Sorry, there's no lizard in this, but just a fun one-shot. I repicked up, I should say, a run of The Mighty Thor, Mac Fraction's start where, first of all, it's a Galactus story. Anytime you put Galactus in a story, even Dazzler, I will buy it.
Yeah, I bought that.
And, it's a good series. I think Thor and the Silver Surfer, considering how many times they fought together, kind of come off as assholes, but that might be part of it, because you got a guy with cosmic powers and you got a god. They can afford to be assholes, but just a good series, a good start. Again, book material. Cory, do you remember way back in 2003, you said you got to read these issues because they're really good? Do you remember the title?
I say that all the time!
Well, it was written by Evan Dorkin.
Beasts of Burden?
It had Fight Man in it.
Oh, Bill and Ted.
No. Agent X.
Oh, yeah.
Be a Man, Buy Your Girl a Comic was the title. It was a two-parter. I have no idea if Evan Dorkin, did he do all of Agent X, or was it just these two-parters?
I think he may have just done the two-parters.
Yeah, I was going to go look at our favorite Atomic Avenue, but they're down right now. Probably because we're using up all the bandwidth for this podcast. But this was a two-parter you gave me. You told me to read. I finally read it. Holy cow. Funnier than all fun. Plus it brings back Fight Man from the infamous one-shot that Dorkin did. So, I don't know. I may put these two together with Fight Man and blow it on eBay, but it was just hilarious. Last time I talked about Sergio Aragone's Destroyed the DC Universe. Finished reading Sergio Aragone's Massacres Marvel. Why Sergio isn't doing more books? I mean, I know he's fast enough. I blame Mark Avanier. He just isn't writing fast enough. But just another fun one-shot thing, just having fun. And, it's weird because some of the things when, like, this was back when, just the in-jokes, like he is, what was, who's in the Fantastic Four this week? Which Hulk is it? Who's the Goblin? Things like that. It's kind of like when I was reading She-Hulk. I had to stop and think, oh yeah, this is back before Secret Invasion, where Jazdina was a Skrull that was palling around with She-Hulk. She-Hulk was a bounty hunter, so and so. But just fun stuff. Not as fun, but an intriguing read is a book called Dumped by Andy Watson. This is through Oni Press. Basically a slice-of-life type story, dealing more on the romance side of thing. See, here's a guy, he could do a couple romance books for Marvel, take a couple characters, have some fun. Andy Watson's an Eisner Nominator creator. He's done Breakfast Afternoon and Slow News Day, which I will be talking about later as I get to read them. Dumped is $1 on eBay, so find it. Worth reading. Let's see. I talked about this one in past podcasts, but I did pick it up. From Tome Press through Caliber in 93, Paul Daly did a adaptation of Rudyard Kipling's The Man Who Would Be King. And this was actually kind of interesting. I know there's a movie out on it. Not the comic, the novel. And I may pick up the novel. But this is a pretty good adaptation done in one. Believe it or not, I read Part 2 of The Children's Crusade. Part 1 was in the Books of Magic graphic novel I read a while back. And so when I ran across Part 2, which was heading right to the dollar box, I just figured I had to read it just to figure out the second half of it. And basically at the time, the Vertigo children characters got together for a crossover. Tim Hunter, Teffy from Swamp Thing, and the Dead Boy Detectives are in it. There's a couple other characters that were in Marvel or from Vertigo books that I don't read at the time. But it was good to read it, and to the dollar bin it goes. Not going to the dollar bin is the latest issue of Knights of the Dinner Table, number 244. And of course, if you're following along, they continue on with the crew going head to head with Gary and in their game. They start the gold ticket run inside of what do they call them? Triple H. I don't forget what the warehouse that has all the Hackmaster fun in it.
Yeah.
So this is just a book I absolutely love, and I definitely recommend. Graphic novel-wise, I read one, Star Trek Mission's End. The story the fans have been waiting for. Even though it's been told multiple times, this was actually quite a fun one. A lost tale of Star Trek saga, final mission of the original Starship Enterprise crew. They tackle most unconventionally stories that would prompt Mr. Spock and Dr. McCoy to retire from Starfleet. What earns Kirk his promotion to Admiral, and what is the mystery of Achenar 5 that threatens to tear the Federation apart. It was a 5-issue series written by Ty Templeton, artwork by Stephen Molnar. IDW done did it, and it's not canon, but it's just fun to read. I've read books. There was a DC annual that dealt with the final mission. It's all fun stuff. They do a good job of tying in the different continuities, and I'm just a Star Trek geek. What can I say? That's pretty much it. Oh, let's see, everything else I got. Oh, how could I forget? I finished a run of comics. I have all of Supergirl's appearances in Adventure Comics.
Ooh.
This was her. Yeah, when I was at the con, guy was just blowing them out cheap, and I'm looking for readers, so I picked up a few copies that might be below the. Let's see, how do you spell adventure? I'm trying to find. Okay, let's see. Her run started. 331, ended about 424. There was one book I didn't have to pick up in the run, number 403. Let's see how good Cory is. Let's ask the Strode. Cory, why, if I'm a Supergirl collector, boy, did I telegraph that one, I don't need to buy Adventure Comics number 403.
Well, that might have been one of those special DC specials that reprinted a bunch of stuff other than Supergirl. But I don't know for sure.
Yeah, they did Legion of Superheroes in that one.
How weird.
Yeah, very weird, because you got this pretty much unbroken run. There are some specials in here. For example, one of the ones I picked up, I believe, was 416, which was a giant-size issue, and there was one that was a 100-page giant, but they only did one at that time. Must have caught them at the tail end. And I did pick up some of the early ones, like in 325, 326, there were Legion appearances that had Supergirl in them. But I have that run done. I have the 70s Supergirl, although I need a number 7 because the one I have is really, even for a guy who just wants a reader copy, this one's way bad. I've got I think I have the whole Darling Adventures of Supergirl. I may be missing one. Darling. Either way, I'm good. Darling. And I was calling you that. Rejection. Nobody cleans my house. So I'm pretty much good with that. My goal is to have a reader copy, not the original anymore, not after I saw what that first appearance of Supergirl is going for, copy of all of her appearances from her first appearance way back in Action to, of course, the death in Crisis. So, well on my way of doing that. Cory, what are you geeking on?
There is an Image book that I picked up kind of on a whim. I'd heard about it and picked up the first issue and then had to buy them all. And it's Green Valley. It's written by Max Landis, who's the son of director John Landis. And it starts as the story of 4 legendary knights who come up against a barbarian king, humiliate him, and he takes his revenge by destroying their city. And that's all I'm going to tell you, because each issue has a twist to it. There's a twist in each issue where you find out something different. You find out they are asked to fight a wizard and his dragons. And it's only 9 issues. The 7th issue recently came out, and it's phenomenally good. Very, very good. Because the 7th issue is already out, just wait and pick it up, as it should be a complete trade. But Green Valley from Image, it's another one of the Skybourne books. I have time off this week, so I've actually been using my streaming services. Filmstruck, I've talked about in the past. They've got all these foreign films, all these older films. I watched a film by Otto Preminger that I've been hearing about for years, but I'd never seen, called Laura. And it's from the early 40s. It's considered one of the first film noirs. I'd always heard about it. I'd never seen it. They had a beautiful, pristine print. Looked brand new. And they had an introduction where it explained what was going on behind the scenes when it was made. Filmstruck is a streaming service from both Turner Classic Movies and Criterion Films. So you've got all the Criterion movies and a bunch of stuff from Turner Classic. And, boy, I wish I had more days off, because I'd just sit and watch.
That's what retirement's for, son.
Yeah, but by then there'll be different ways to get movies to us.
Yes, that implant chip in your head.
Yes. And so I've really been enjoying that, and I am reading men's adventure novels from the 70s. I've been on a men's adventure novel kick. Joe was there when I picked up some of those Death Merchant books in St. Cloud, and they are just wacky and weird and filled with every 70s conspiracy theory you can think of. You've got aliens from the past, you've got the Bermuda Triangle, all that stuff, and basically the Death Merchant finds him and kills everybody.
A passage.
What's his superpower? It's like when the Punisher got his own series, and I was working at Schindler's, and some kids were coming in, and, what's this guy's power? Oh, he does this. What's this guy's power? He does this. I get to the Punisher. What's his power? He has a lot of guns. And, well, the last thing I'm geeking on, Joe, I've talked about how the group home gives a quarterly bonus check, haven't I?
Yeah.
And it's based on the number of hours. It used to be based on the number of hours you're scheduled for, so I would only get a $50 check, even though I was working hundreds of hours. Then they changed it to, it's based on the number of hours you work within certain groups. Now it's based on the actual number of hours, and that will be coming next month. But they've lost some key people recently who've resigned and gotten jobs either at other facilities, or one of the people who was running one of the group homes, one of the 4 cottages, went back to teaching. He was able to get a job teaching. So the fact that I've been there all the time, the people who have put in extra hours got an extra bonus check this week. And they didn't even tell us about it. I came into work Tuesday night. I was pretty tired. I got there around 9. And, yeah, I'd been, this is a 70-hour week at the group home. Last week was a 60-hour week at the group home, on top of a full-time job, because I'm crazy. But I came in and was asked to come over to Cottage 2 to check the medication charts, and I checked the charts. And when I was done, they said, oh, and there's a letter for you here. And it was a check. So I could buy comics tomorrow.
Fun.
And it was not a small check either. It was a nice little bonus. So getting that bonus and then another bonus, and who knows, Joe? Maybe one of these days I can slow down.
Yeah, it'll happen naturally.
It hasn't yet. Well, believe it or not, kids, you've listened to us blather on about funny books for an hour and a half.
Thank you.
And as we say every week, the comic we like the least, we still like better than the comic that you like the most. Joe?
Why did Dead Man take cold medicine? He couldn't stop coughing.
Please clap.
Gotta keep Jeff in business. Hit my music!
We done, bitches!